New friends, new enemies. Our story continued. I would like to say our story begins with Ash and Gary running to Professor Oak's lab. Since they're twins, they have a bad sleeping habit. As they get in, seeing a boy pick a starter Pokemon, with Gary wanting him to know who's this little twerp, with the boy looking over, as he'll just say hi, but Ash will for one be saying hi, but let's say Gary, he has some other words what I don't think I can say on YouTube, because he thinks he stole his favourite starter, Squirtle. But luckily for Gary, he didn't. He only took Bulbasaur. So I think that's very self-explanatory about who's getting which starter. Since Gary, he is not too fond of Richie. He challenges him for a battle, as Richie would decline, just saying that why would he waste his time on somebody like Gary? With Gary pretty much having steam coming out of his head. He throws Squirtle's Pokeball, with Squirtle looking back at Gary. He then giving him a nod, getting ready for attack. With Richie just sighing, then sending out Bulbasaur. With immediately he calls for a Vine Whip. Gary not checking his moves of his Pokemon. He doesn't know how to counter it. But since he did work with Professor Oak, he has a good mind about what moves will Squirtle have. But with him thinking about what her Pokemon moves he has, it's already too late, with Bulbasaur hitting it with a Vine Whip, then following up with another. Gary calling for tackle, with it ramming into her Bulbasaur, as he'll follow it with another tackle, with tackling connecting multiple times. He's looking down for her other trainer, but he finds a way to counter it. Bulbasaur use Vine Whip on its legs, without working, tripping it over, leaving it open to many Vine Whips until Gary calls it into its shell. Then it starts spinning with a new move learned, Rapid Spin, with it darting across the lab, almost hitting Ash, Charmander, Richie, Professor Oak and Gary's legs, where eventually it hits Bulbasaur, knocking it out. With Gary just laughing, with Ash saying he shouldn't laugh. He almost lost, remember, with Gary telling Ash to shut his trap before he'll make him lose as well. With Charmander not liking it, he shoots out an ember right on Gary's face, in the comedy fashion, burning him to a crisp, with everybody laughing, with Richie and Gary healing their Pokemon, with both of them becoming really good rivals. As I guess we never talked about Ash and Gary's friendship. It's like they're very rivalry. If anything comes to a competition, they're super rivals. But if it comes down just like for friendship, they're like besties. Yeah, sisters. I'm not put out to be a Pokemon YouTuber, am I? Alright. So we make our way onto Route 1, as when Gary would encounter a Pidgey, the same one in canon, he'll drop his backpack and call for Squirtle to use a bubble or water gun. I'm not sure which one it learns later. So with the move connecting, him hurting Pidgey, with it trying to fly off, with Gary having pretty good aim, he catches the Pidgey, adding it to his team. With that, where he hears something rushing in his backpack, as he tells Squirtle to tackle it to the ground, as the Pokemon runs out is a Rattata. But her Squirtle got it to ping down on the ground. Then Gary will say to Rattata, since, well, you tried to steal from me, how about you help me steal some badges? With him adding Rattata to his team. When Ash will encounter Spearow, he calls for a tackle, then a stretch, then an Ember. Without working, with the Spearow trying to counter back, Ash throws a Pokeball, adding it to his team. As Gary would add the Oddish to his team. He will also add a Nidorino male to his team. We stop at the Viridian City Pokemon Center. That's where we're going to end off today's episode.